Hi everyone, hope you're well. Today is Friday the 20th of September. Couldn't read numbers for a second there. Friday the 20th of September 2013. And I've been doing loads of stuff on my dice game and feeling really good about it. So I'll talk in more specifics about that in a second. First thing I just quickly wanted to say, because it's an ongoing topic at the moment, is I was procrastinating a lot at first, and I remembered that thing of just doing a bit, even though I don't feel like doing it, and then finding that I end up doing loads, and actually remembered that before actually doing it today. Remembered, oh yes, if I just force myself to do a little bit, I usually get really into it, and I really did today. I had so much fun. And I think what's even more important is actually when I was procrastinating, thinking that I was aiming to do some work on my dice game or on my video formats, and procrastinating, thinking I'll do some work on that in a minute. I was actually really bored, and really bored, and I think the thing is, if I feel like I've done work and everything, and I'm actually just looking to have fun, then I turn to certain computer games and certain TV programs and things that I know will entertain me. But that's kind of like a bigger time investment. That's kind of like I'm going to play Borderlands for a couple of hours. Whereas when I feel like I need to get some work done and I'm actually just procrastinating, I don't want to just go and do something else for a couple of hours. I want to just do something chilled out and entertaining for like 15 minutes or something, or 10 minutes or 5 minutes, just to feel like, oh, I'll do a little something small that's fun first before I do some work. And so I end up poking around on Twitter and YouTube and stuff, and not really finding anything that actually entertains me, and then getting frustrated and bored and continuing to look for something cool, something entertaining that's small, and kind of having hit and miss, or even sort of like finding one thing that is entertaining and then wanting something else, but then having to dig around for stuff again. And then the irony being that when I actually work on my dice game, I actually have loads of fun. So if I was more, if I keep myself more aware of that, then I probably won't even feel the need to procrastinate in the first place, because that's meant to be like chilling out and having fun before concentrating on doing some, serious creative work, when actually the creative work is actually really, really enjoyable. So anyway, more specifically on the rules I've been playing about with today. There's a couple of things from yesterday that I didn't have time to talk about, that I've decided to make it, for at least for the moment, I've decided that it's going to be just a 2-player game. This is partly due to the limitations of only having so many dice, and I've now got a mechanic where you actually own dice. You actually buy dice and collect more dice throughout the game. So in order for there to be enough dice for each player, I'm going with about 12 dice, so that allows each player to have about 6 dice, or one player to have 7, one player to have 5 if the other player's struggling. So that's partly the reason, but it's also, if there's only 2 players, it makes it a lot simpler, and simpler the better, so I can absolutely tweak it and balance it so that it's really good and really fun. And if there's sort of like optional 2-player or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, then there's all these different, there's a much wider spectrum of situations that I have to consider and balance for. Whereas if I always know it's just going to be 2 players, then that's good. Also, with the survival, at the moment, the end goal is just to survive. You're trying to knock down your opponent's health to 0. So with just 2 players, it has that kind of dueling mechanic. And when one player dies and they're out the game, that's the end of the game. It's not like multiple players and getting knocked out and then having to sit around waiting for the rest of the players to finish, which is also good. So yeah, I was also worried about there might be a first person advantage. So for the moment, I've put in something called the pie rule, also known as the swap rule, which means, if I explain it quickly, it means the player who goes first potentially has a huge advantage. So you add this rule saying after just in the first turn, when the first player's done their move, the second player has the option of swapping places with them. The first player then becomes a second player, and the previous second player has what the first player has just done. So in effect, what happens is the first player doesn't want to do something that's really powerful and unfair and puts the second player at a really big disadvantage, because if they do, the second player can go, okay, I want to swap with you then, because then, whatever they do could be potentially them, if you see what I mean. So it's called the pie rule if you want to read further. It's a really interesting mechanic. You only do it in the first turn, and but it just means that the first player, despite having a large advantage, in my game in particular, doesn't decide to attack the second player and damage their starting position, just in case the second player decides to then swap. So it keeps it a bit more even, and then hopefully, I think the rest of it's quite even. There's a little bit of pacing problems. It's a bit slow to gain dice at the beginning, and then I've also done the thing that once all the dice are bought out, there's like a sudden death where you can't get more health anymore, and that's really good because the last person you buy dice with your health. So what tends to happen is that the player with more dice, if there is a player with more dice, ends up with less health, and the player with less dice has more health, and it kind of balances out. And with a couple of games I've play tested so far, it really can go either way, which is quite cool. And so it's kind of like the beginning to middle of the game at the moment is a little bit slow going, and so I'm thinking of fixing that by adding in various special skills and stuff. But I'm kind of testing it without the skills so that I can decide what the game needs, and then the skills can fill that gap, hopefully, for the most part. Or not for the most part. Hopefully, for the most part, I can tweak the game so it feels really balanced, and then the skills can just give it that little bit extra just to make it really cool and really fun. So that's like up to 8 minutes, so I better stop talking now. I hope you're well, and but I'm having a lot of fun working on my dice game, and fingers crossed it's going to be really good for everyone and lots of people will enjoy it, and I will see you tomorrow.